All right, welcome. We're about to go on a pretty unique investigative journey. We're not just here to tell you the story of a forgotten hospital in Los Angeles. No, our mission is to dig through its ruins to find very specific, powerful moments of renewal.
You know, this quote from curator John Wolfe just perfectly captures the emotional weight of the building we're about to explore. It's a place of incredible contradictions, and that's really where our search has to begin.
So, this is our creative challenge. This is our mission. We're going to sift through the rubble of this hospital's history, find its strongest stories of resilience, and then use them to design a blueprint for an immersive room that's all about emotional renewal. Okay, let's dive in. Our search kicks off way back in 1971 with just a profound act of creation. So our first theme here is all about rebuilding, especially in an era of exclusion. To really get why this hospital was so important, you have to understand the world it was born into. We're talking about post-civil rights LA, where Black doctors were still being denied privileges at white-owned hospitals. The community of West Adams, they didn't just want a healthcare institution of their own, they needed one.
And this was the answer: the West Adams Community Hospital. Think about that. The very first Black-owned hospital in all of Los Angeles. This wasn't just a building. It was a powerful political and social statement of self-determination. It provided first-class care and created more than 1,000 jobs.
And these were the people who made it happen, the architects of that vision. Doctors like Ludlow Creary, William Beck, and George F. Jackson. These were incredibly resilient physicians who, when the banks refused to give them loans, just pooled their own money to build this landmark, a true beacon of hope for their community.
Okay, so let's fast forward a few decades. That original beacon of hope is about to face its biggest challenge yet. The hospital, now under new corporate ownership and with a new name, Lamech, enters its absolute darkest chapter. And this brings us to our second theme: endurance.
By the 2000s, the entire focus had shifted. That original mission of community care, it was completely gone, replaced by a ruthless, profit-driven corporate model. The hospital became the epicenter of a massive, horrifying fraud scheme that targeted the city's most vulnerable people.
And this is how brutally efficient the crime was. It was a system. Marketers would go to Skid Row and offer small bribes to homeless individuals. They'd be put in an ambulance and taken to LMMC, bypassing closer hospitals. Their medical records would be completely fabricated to justify stays they didn't need. They were held, sometimes against their will, all to maximize the bills sent to Medicare and Medi-Cal. It was a cold, calculated process of turning people into profit.
But even in this absolute darkness, we find our next story of resilience, and it comes down to the profound courage of one person. Her name is Julie Macias. She was a registered nurse in the psychiatric unit, and she refused to be a part of it. In 2012, she filed a lawsuit and blew the whole scheme wide open from the inside. Her testimony was just harrowing. She alleged the hospital was abusing 1550 holds, that's the legal code for an involuntary psychiatric detention. They were faking data to lock patients in the psych ward, not because they needed help, but simply because the reimbursement rates were higher. They weren't just committing fraud, they were stripping people of their freedom for money.
Because of her endurance, her courage, the whole system came crashing down. The Department of Justice forced the parent company into a $16.5 million settlement. The hospital couldn't survive the fallout, and in 2013 it closed its doors for good. So after the collapse, the building just sat there, abandoned for 3 years, a giant concrete corpse. But this is where our search for renewal finds its final and maybe its most surprising chapter. Our third theme: reinvention.
In 2016, the silence was finally broken, but not by doctors, by artists. Curator John Wolfe invited over 80 of them to come inside and transform this psychologically charged space into an immersive exhibition called Human Condition. It was a way to reflect on life and death right there in the ruins.
The very first act of this reinvention was so bold. An artist, Kelly Lamb, repainted the giant rooftop billboard. She transformed it from a corporate hospital sign into a brand new name, a vessel of pure humanity, Flesh and Bone Zone. As you walked inside, into the lobby, you were immediately confronted by a piece from the legendary conceptual artist Jenny Holzer. She placed one of her famous text-based benches there, forcing visitors to face the building's history of broken trust head-on. And just listen to this text. Imagine reading this in that lobby. It's a perfect illustration of how art can completely recontextualize a space. That text right there became this powerful, chilling indictment of the betrayal that had happened in that very room.
Then, deeper inside, in one of the sterile operating rooms, another artist created a juxtaposition that was just incredibly powerful.
Okay, so picture the scene. Cold, sterile surgical lights, machinery everywhere, a place of intense clinical power. And right there, in the middle of it all, was this cartoonish, innocent ceramic sculpture of a boy, a symbol of extreme vulnerability. Placing that innocent figure under those harsh surgical lights, well, it gave the work this haunting new meaning. It became a symbol for the ultimate voiceless victim. So, our investigation is now complete. We've journeyed through this hospital's entire life cycle. And what we've found are these incredibly powerful moments of renewal, shining right through the cracks of the ruin.
So here's the crucial point. Our blueprint for this immersive room is built on 3 pillars. You have the founders in the 70s and their theme of rebuilding. You have the whistleblower, Julie Macias, in the 2010s with her story of endurance. And finally, the artists in 2016 and their act of reinvention. This table, it just perfectly captures the emotional journey we've uncovered. And this is our takeaway. This is the core of our blueprint. The immersive room we're going to design isn't going to focus on the fraud or the decay. Instead, it's going to be a sensory experience of rebuilding, endurance, and reinvention, a journey that honors the resilience of the human spirit, not the failure of an institution.
You know, the story of this one hospital in Los Angeles, it leaves us with a much bigger question, doesn't it? One that's about memory, art, and how we as a society choose to reclaim our most wounding spaces. How do we turn a site of trauma into a space for healing?